For years, they said Easter is about renewal, light, hope. But no one talks about what hides in the silent early hours while everyone is celebrating. Have you ever wondered why so many children go missing on festive dates? Or why certain families abandon their homes without explanation? The answer might lie in the details no one wants to see. In old churches that erase records, in camps where nighttime whispers are ignored, in torch-bearing figures that appear every spring and never leave a trace. This story gathers accounts the police can't explain and the victims would rather forget. But if you stay until the end, you'll understand why some doors should never be opened, and why certain symbols keep appearing year after year, even when everyone swears it's just superstition. Maybe the true terror of Easter isn't in the legends, but in what no one dares to tell. I always knew something was wrong with that church. It wasn't the faith, the priest, or the lit candles. It was the bathroom in the back. It sits in the basement, behind the sacristy, where the phone signal disappears and sound echoes strangely. That's where it happened. On Easter Mass when I was 7, I went there alone, just wanted to wash my hands, but I found the bunny. He was standing in front of the mirror. The costume was dirty, the ears drooped, and the head tilted to the side. I froze. My first instinct was to laugh because it looked like a bad joke, but he didn't move, and when I took a step back, he said my name. He didn't ask. He stated it, as if he already knew who I was. I ran. Of course I did, but the door was locked. Behind me, the sound of claws scraping tile, of fake paws dragging a heavy body. I screamed, but no one heard. The mass continued upstairs. The scent of incense mixed with the sweat of my fear. It was the longest moment of my life. When they found me, I was curled up inside the stall with scratches on my arms and eyes that refused to close. They said I hit my head, that I made it all up, that maybe it was just someone from the parish in costume. But there was blood on the floor, and it wasn't mine. For years I tried to forget, but every spring when the smell of flowers fills the house, that day returns. I see the bunny in the mirror's reflection. I see his tilted head. I hear him whispering my name while I drift between sleep and nightmare. Maybe I never left that bathroom. I started digging. I found out other kids went missing at that church. Always on Easter, always alone, their bodies were never found. And the weirdest part, the church records, they stop in 1987, like someone wanted to erase the past or protect it. I went back. As an adult, the church is closed now, abandoned, but the bathroom is still there, and the door still locks from the inside. I brought a camera, of course. I recorded everything, and in the mirror's reflection for a split second, he appeared behind me. Same angle, same posture, same whisper. I deleted the video. I didn't want proof. I wanted distance. But it's like he marked me, like it's a game, and I lost. Reality started to blur. I'm sure I'm being followed. In mirrors, windows, security cameras. He's there. They said it's trauma, paranoia. But trauma doesn't leave footprints on your kitchen floor. Trauma doesn't twist your doorknob at 3 a.m., and trauma doesn't write Happy Easter on your mirror in fog with backwards letters. They say the Easter Bunny is a symbol of rebirth. Maybe mine was the opposite. Something in me died that day, and since then something else took its place. Something that doesn't believe in God but knows evil goes to church and waits, in the dark, in silence. I remember that spring, everything felt too normal. It was the last night of camp, and like always, someone suggested playing manhunt in the woods, a kind of nighttime tag with flashlights and nervous laughter. 8 teenagers pretending to be brave, shouting louder to cover the unease. But one real scream changed everything, and I never played in the dark again. Miguel was the first to disappear. He was the bold one, the one who loved hiding far away. When we noticed he wasn't answering, we started searching. Caio's flashlight found his backpack near the stream. There were claw marks in the fabric, like something tried to tear it open. Still, we told ourselves it was part of the game. Fear is good at lying to you. We started calling for Miguel, louder each time. And then we heard it. A sharp crack like wood splitting, followed by rushing footsteps. But it wasn't Miguel. The thing that ran through the trees was too big. A shadow that brushed past our group and almost knocked Amanda down. No one saw it clearly, but everyone felt it. We ran back to the cabin, locked the doors, shut the windows, and waited, shaking, for Miguel to burst in with that stupid grin saying he got us, but he didn't come back. Not that night, not the next day. And what haunts us most isn't the disappearance, it's what we heard outside before dawn. Heavy footsteps circled the cabin, then breathing. Deep, ragged, like something huge was watching from just beyond the wall. The porch creaked. One window began to fog up from the inside, but no one had gone near it. When daylight came, there were claw marks on the back door, and something else. On the fogged-up glass, someone had written a word, "No." Just that, a short, dry, terrifying message. Police came, searched the forest, said it was just a bear, that Miguel probably got lost, but we knew better, because that breathing still echoes when we close our eyes. Amanda started having nightmares. Always the same, something standing between trees, holding something over its shoulders. She woke up screaming Miguel's name. I tried to forget. But every time the wind moves through the trees, that sound returns, a low whisper, like a warning. Some parents threatened to sue the camp. Others said we imagined it. Teenagers exaggerate. But no one explained the gashes on the trees. 3 vertical slashes, deep like they were made with something bigger than a knife or a claw. Always 3. Always grouped. Years later, I went back, alone. It was autumn now, but the air still smelled of fear. I found the marked trees, and something buried beneath the dirt. A metal whistle with Miguel's name engraved, untarnished, unrusted, as if time there had stopped. I know he's still out there, not alive, but trapped in the muted screams of the night and the forest's whispers. And I stayed too. Not in body, but in thought. Because when you run in the dark hoping not to be found, sometimes you realize you were chosen long ago. Some say it was trauma, a massive coincidence. But deep down, we all knew something was watching us that night. And that feeling never left. Maybe because the game never ended. At my uncle's house, the forest sounds are different. Not crickets, not owls, not the wind rustling branches. It's the silence that comes after. That Easter holiday, we went to visit the family, like we had since I was a kid. But something was different that spring. It was like the earth itself was unsettled, like something was watching. The first night was quiet, almost too quiet. No TV, no internet, just the hum of cicadas and the creaking wood. My parents went to bed early. I stayed up reading, the window open. That's when I saw the lights, small torches moving through the trees, like a procession crossing the darkness. But there was no music, no voices, just the flicker of firelight. I froze. The figures moved slowly between the trees, always in a straight line. They were tall, with deliberate, almost theatrical movements. Their faces were covered with something that reflected faintly, like polished metal. They were headed toward the house, and then they all stopped at once, like they knew I was watching. I shut the window, turned off the light, but I kept peeking through the slats. One of them raised a torch toward the house as a warning or an invitation. I don't know how much time passed, but eventually they turned and disappeared into the forest, vanished the same way they came, in silence. I told my uncle. He went pale, much more than I expected. Said that long ago, this land belonged to an isolated group, people who practiced forbidden rituals. They'd walk the woods with torches, making offerings. But that was decades ago, or at least, that's what people say. The next night, we all slept in the living room. My dad thought it was safer. We locked every door and window, but deep down, we knew it didn't matter. Because real fear doesn't come through the door. It enters through the mind, through doubt, through the realization that the world we know may not be the only one. A snap outside woke me. My uncle was already standing, rifle in hand. We peeked through the curtain. There they were, standing at the tree line, motionless, torches burning and aimed at us. Then, one by one, they started hitting the ground with the wood. Once, then again. A steady rhythm. We didn't know if they were calling or warning, but my mom was crying. My dad was shaking, and the sound of those hits echoed in our bones. It was like it triggered some ancient memory, when fire meant danger. When fire moving without cause meant something was wrong. They vanished with the sunrise. But they left behind circular burn marks in the soil, right in front of the porch. No one explained it. No one wanted to talk during breakfast, but I know what I saw, and I know what I felt. It was like the torches lit more than the night. They lit up truths we'd rather not face. The following nights, I kept hearing soft steps, whispers in the corners of rooms, but everyone denied it, said it was in my head. And maybe it was, or maybe it was just the beginning, because sometimes when you see too much, They come back to finish what they started. The hike started like any other. The plan was to explore the trail behind my uncle's house, an old, overgrown path mostly lost to time. There were 3 of us, me, Amanda, and Lucas, too young to take the warning seriously. The forest felt alive, like it was listening to every step, and the daylight never quite made it through the tree canopy. Right away, we noticed symbols scratched into rocks, triangles, spirals, things carved by impatient hands. We laughed, brushed it off as remnants of some hippie camp. But Amanda didn't laugh. She walked slower, scanning the trees like she could feel something wrong. I felt it too. But I kept going. Fear often dresses up as curiosity. About an hour in, we found the first cross. Huge, dark wood jammed into a twisted tree. It didn't look man-made. It was thick, charred in places. It was upside down, and hanging from it was a charm made of feathers and what looked like teeth. The forest got quieter at that point, the air colder. We decided to turn back, but Amanda insisted on continuing, like something was pulling her. A few minutes later, we saw the second cross, also inverted, also surrounded by strange markings. There were extinguished candles arranged in a circle, and a rope tied around a nearby trunk. Something inside me started trembling. Not my hands, my memory. Lucas wanted to leave, but Amanda was in a trance. She said she needed to see the last one. Like she knew there would be a third, and there was. 10 minutes deeper into the woods, bigger than the others, surrounded by carved symbols, and a man standing next to it. Tall, thin, his face covered by a dark cloth. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. We froze. The man slowly raised one arm and pointed at the cross. He didn't speak. And something about that moment made me realize it wasn't a warning, it was a test. Amanda took a step forward. I grabbed her. Lucas was crying, and then the man smiled. The smile was crooked, like his face was broken inside. But his eyes, they had no color, just a dull void. We ran. Branches scratched us. We tripped, we screamed, but no one answered. The forest felt thicker, more alive, and every tree now had eyes. Or at least, it felt that way. We reached the house out of breath, scratched and shaking. My uncle looked at us and said nothing. He brought us in, locked every door, and lined the windows with salt. Then he said, "You saw what you shouldn't have." He never brought it up again, not even when Amanda started drawing the crosses with her eyes closed. The days that followed were foggy. Amanda didn't speak for 3 weeks. Lucas started dreaming of ropes hanging from trees, and me, I started forgetting. Small pieces at first, like the forest had taken parts of my memory as payment for surviving. Maybe it did. One day I opened my backpack and found a feather, just like the one from the cross, but I never put it there. Since then, I avoid forests, symbols, darkness. But I know I'm still being watched, because sometimes in the window's reflection I see someone behind me, tall, still pointing. Maybe the forest never ended. Maybe we're still inside it, and this life, this routine, is just a distraction while they decide what to do with us. Because those who see the 3 crosses are never the same again. That night, sleep didn't come. The silence felt heavier than usual, like something was holding time in place. We were all at my uncle's house after the torch sightings. No one talked about it, but we all knew fear hung in the air like dust. I got up, went to the kitchen for water, and through the window I saw them. They were at the edge of the woods, each holding a torch, standing still, completely still. The firelight flickered, but their bodies didn't. Not a step, not a visible breath. They looked like living statues pulled from a nightmare. I backed away from the window, heart pounding, wanted to scream, but no sound came out. My uncle appeared seconds later. He said nothing, just grabbed the rifle and walked to the door. My mom tried to stop him, but he looked at her with an expression I'd never seen before. It was fear, but not ordinary fear. The kind of fear that comes from already knowing, from having seen this before, from knowing what happens if you don't act. He went out. We sat in silence, listening to his steps fade into the dry ground. A minute or two, then the sound of a gunshot, just one. It shattered the night like a lightning strike. We ran outside, but there was no one. No uncle. No figures. Just the echo of the shot and the faint smell of gunpowder in the air. We called. We shouted. We searched with flashlights. We found footprints, but not just his. Others, larger, oddly shaped, like human feet mixed with paws. We returned to the house in silence. The door was left open, the rifle wasn't found, and neither was my uncle. The next day, the police came. They found nothing. No tracks, no bullet, no signs of a struggle. It was like he'd vanished. My mom kept repeating that he knew, that he always knew, and that this was the only way to protect us. But protect us from what? No one would say. The nights that followed were filled with sounds. Creaks on the roof, whispers near the door, and worst of all, footsteps. Always 3 steps, slow, deliberate, like something was circling the house, staking its claim. Sometimes I looked, but no one was there. Just the echo and the feeling of being watched. One night, I heard his voice, low, hoarse, nearly unrecognizable. He told me not to open the door, that it wasn't him, that they were using his form, that everything I believed about reality was fragile. The doorknob turned. The door trembled. But I didn't open it. I stood still until the sun came up. The fear wasn't outside anymore. It was inside. Something had lodged itself in me. A shard of that night, buried in my soul. My parents tried to move on, but the house was never the same. Mirrors fogged up by themselves, the TV turned on at 3 a.m., and always, always in the corner of the screen, a shadow. Now, every time the night deepens, I feel that presence. Like something is waiting for me to fall asleep so it can come in. I don't dream anymore. I just wake up with my heart racing, smelling torches and damp earth. I don't know what they are, but I know they're coming back. Because too much silence is always a sign. And when it comes again, I don't know if I'll keep the door closed. Because there's a kind of pain that only quiets when you give in. When you stop fighting and let it in. Maybe that's why my uncle walked out that night. Maybe he knew that sooner or later, we all opened the door. What scared me the most wasn't what we saw, it was what never got answered. The authorities said there was no evidence, that no one could be certain of anything, that my uncle's disappearance was just another among many. But we knew. We felt it in our bodies, like horror leaves an invisible mark, a scar only the victim can see. We tried to move on, each of us carrying a piece of it. Amanda still sees the torches in her dreams. Lucas hears footsteps on moonless nights, and me. I became obsessed. I created folders, files, recordings. I reviewed every testimony, every old photo, every record tied to my uncle's land. And the deeper I went, the less it made sense. Or maybe it made too much sense. There were patterns. Always in spring, always in remote places, always with young people, families, or children who never came back the same or didn't come back at all. A tangle of symbols, dates, and trails. Maps that seemed connected by something larger, like a web of silence stretched through the woods, and we were just flies walking across it. I showed my notes to an anthropology professor. He read them, looked at me, and asked me to stop. Said some things feed on attention, and sometimes investigating is the same as inviting. I left his office with a new weight in my chest. For the first time, I was afraid of knowing. Real fear, fear of going further. I returned to my uncle's house one last time, boarded up, covered in leaves and dust, but inside everything was untouched, except for one detail. The living room mirror was turned to face the wall, a small thing but meaningful. Like someone knew that reflecting too much draws out what's on the other side. I turned on the camera and recorded myself walking through the house. In the background, wood creaking underfoot. In the video later, I heard something I hadn't noticed live. A voice, very low, saying, "Not resolved." Over and over in a dry, flat tone. I sat in silence for a long time. I deleted the file, but I never forgot. People laughed, called it mass hysteria, said fear spreads like fever, and maybe they're right. But there's one thing I've never been able to explain. The whisper at night saying my name, even when I was alone, even when there was no electricity, even when there was no wind. I felt like I was being tested, like something was watching, waiting for a choice. I don't know what the criteria were, but something tells me those who see and forget are spared. The ones who remember too much, who write, record, investigate, are the chosen. Or worse, the destined. It's hard to keep living once you know reality is fragile. That certainty is a shell, and beneath the surface of normal life, there's an invisible world watching us. In silence, in cycles, and sometimes, just sometimes, that world bleeds through and takes. Maybe that's why no one was ever arrested. They never found the cloth-faced man, never located the crosses, because the evidence doesn't vanish. It never existed in ways we could understand. They're clues for those who know how to see, and traps for those who dare look too deep. And now, as I write this, I feel something drawing near, like telling it is also opening a door, Maybe the mystery isn't meant to be solved, but endured, carried like a shadow. Because some stories don't end, they just repeat with new names, new victims, new mirrors turned to the wall. Maybe some stories aren't meant to be solved, only to leave scars. Because there are fears that don't fade with time, they just learn to hide better. What if you found out that your most innocent memory carries a buried secret? And what if that figure you saw for a second in the mirror wasn't an illusion? How many signs do we ignore every day just to keep our idea of reality intact? Maybe the deepest horror is this: knowing something is wrong but pretending it's not. If you also feel the world hides more than it shows, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell, because sometimes the only way not to be chosen is to keep your eyes open.